He sees me as his star, but that doesn't mean anything to him. That doesn't bother him. He's happy with me, I guess. That's not what I mean. But that's not how he or most people see me, but everyone knows that Dolly Parton is the real queen here. I thought I had died and gone to heaven, honey. No one has ever heard of Miss Dolly's husband or the secret parts of her life that she is now telling us. Dolly Parton is famous and praised for her music and the important role she has played in American country music for many years. She has been the queen of country music for more than 50 years. Even though Dolly Parton was very famous, her love life was nothing like what other famous partners have to deal with. He has no shows, doesn't get any press, and doesn't spend much time with his wife. However, his death has gotten a lot of attention, and many people are talking about the life he lived. Some people even thought he might have been a figure made up by artists who never existed. Is this true? Let's get started. Start of love that will never end. If you hadn't been here, I wouldn't be here. Dolly Parton sang in her honor song. This was more than just a song to bury her husband and remember their love. It was an emotional farewell that showed how much they loved each other for more than 60 years. Their love, care, understanding, and silence made Dolly's success possible, even though they weren't in the spotlight or giving interviews like other famous people's wives. Years of happy marriage with no court cases or drama over a divorce are a real blessing because they gave her time to work on her business, go on tour, and make movies. Also, some of Dolly Parton's hit songs were influenced by the time and love they spent together. How did they come to love each other? What makes their love story so special? Let's talk about this love that's not like other famous couples. After graduating from high school, Dolly Parton packed up her things and moved about 200 miles to the west to Nashville, which was known as the Shining Promise. There were 12 children in her family and she was the fourth. When she was 13 5 years ago, she had her first taste of fame with a small record business in Louisiana, and released Puppy Love, her first song. It wasn't the huge step forward she had hoped for, but it was a start. That dreamy blonde said she had never thought of being anything but a star, and didn't bother to imagine any other options for herself. That was a very brave move. Dolly, 18, was cleaning her clothes at the Coin Laundry on her first day in Nashville. Carl, 21, drove up in his white Chevy pickup and stopped by. He pulled over to tell her that what she was wearing would make her burn in the sun. As she went inside to fold her laundry, he began to talk to her. Carl told his wife, "My first thought was, I'm going to marry that girl on their 50th wedding anniversary in 2016. My second thought was, she's really pretty. That was the start of my life. I wouldn't trade the last 50 years for anything." When a tall, good-looking guy looked at Dolly's face while they talked, she was surprised and happy. They went on dates together, and soon after, Dolly signed with Monument Records. Both her music and her love life were moving quickly. Because her only daughter got married without a wedding, Carl asked Dolly to marry him. Dolly told CMT that Carl's mother was very happy and ready to plan a big wedding. That dream wedding that the bride and her mother-in-law had in mind didn't happen though. Dolly's record company had put money into her business, so they asked her to wait a year before getting married. Dolly didn't mean to let Carl and his family down though, and Carl's mother was upset about it. In a quiet wedding on Memorial Day 1966 in Ringgold, Georgia, about 150 miles southeast of Nashville, Dolly, who was 20, and Carl, who was 23, said their vows. It had been 2 years since they met. They chose a place that was far enough away that the Tennessee newspapers wouldn't find out about it. The minister, his wife, Dolly's mother, and Avi Lee were the only ones who saw it. Dolly told CMT, "My mom sewed me a little white dress and made me a small bouquet. I told them I couldn't get married in a courthouse though, it won't seem real." They went to a nearby small Baptist church and asked Pastor Don Duvall, "Will you marry us?" They used the steps outside to take some pics. Dolly knew her husband didn't like show business even before she became famous in the music business, and everything was easy. Even after going to a red carpet event with her in 1966, he told her on the way home, "Dolly, I want you to have everything you dream of, and I'm happy for you. But don't ever ask me to be a part of one of those things again." The next year her big break came with Hello, I'm Dolly, her first full-length record. In the same year, 1967, she began singing on the popular Porter Wagoner show, seen across the country. 45 million people watched TV every week for the next 7 years to hear her voice. Since they've been married for 58 years, Carl has only been seen out in public with Dolly a few times. He likes to be alone, Even so, she says he is her biggest fan. Dolly told People at the 2019 premiere of her Netflix show, "He's always behind me as long as I don't pull him into it. He has always been my biggest fan from the stands, but he doesn't like to join in. You know, I'd rather bring someone else with me. That doesn't bother him at all." Dolly said that one thing that makes their marriage strong is that they give each other room. "He likes being alone, so when I'm home, he doesn't want to be with anyone else. He doesn't like to go out and talk to new people. Taking care of the land on the farm, which he's done for years, is something he loves," she said, "and we always have a lot to say to each other." Dolly Parton has always valued her freedom, so even though she is happily married, she still has doubts. She wrote the famous song Jolene after a bank teller with red hair told her that she liked her husband Carl. "She developed this huge crush on my husband," Dolly told National Public Radio. "It became a joke that we told each other all the time. I would tell them that they spend too much time at the bank. I don't believe we have that much money." Dolly thought the bank worker had things she didn't have, like long legs. "You know, she was about 6 feet tall and had everything that some little short stubby girl like me doesn't have," she remarked. The singer, known as the Backwoods Barbie, has acknowledged that she is a flirt and a tease herself. However, she has also noted that she has never met a man who could fill Carl's shoes. She once confessed to experiencing an affair of the heart, which was entirely emotional, and she mentioned that her faith helped her through that tough time. The death of Carl Dean, the beloved country singer, adored by many, lost her husband, Carl Thomas Dean, on March 3, 2025. Carl was 82 years old when he passed away in Nashville, Tennessee, where he and Dolly built their life together. They had been married for almost 60 years, a love that began in 1964 when Dolly was just 18 and Carl was 21. When Carl died, it broke Dolly's heart, but she made it clear that he had been unwell for a long time, facing difficulties that made his last years quite challenging. Carl's sickness wasn't something Dolly shared a lot about while he was still here. She kept their world private the way Carl always wanted it. But after he was gone, she let a little bit slip out, saying he had Alzheimer's disease, an illness that muddies up the mind and takes away memories. It's a hard sickness that only gets worse as time goes on. And for Carl, it might have started as far back as 2017, when he was 75. Dolly told a Knoxville newspaper on the 17th of March 2025 that Carl suffered a great deal before he left this world. Alzheimer's made it so he couldn't hold on to things in his head like he once did, and it stole the man who used to run his asphalt paving business with confidence. Seeing him slip away like that was a heavy burden for Dolly. The way Alzheimer's took hold of Carl wasn't fast or straightforward. It sneaked in slowly, starting with small things he would forget, like where he left his keys or what he had for breakfast. It got rougher by 2020 when he was 78. He would sometimes forget names, even Dolly's, though deep down he still knew her in his heart. His body held up okay for a while, but his mind drifted off, stuck in a haze he couldn't clear. Dolly said she stayed with him, holding his hand through the long days and nights, especially in those final years when he was nearer to 82 than 80. She stopped doing big singing tours in 2022, choosing to stay home with him instead, knowing every day they had left was special, even if he couldn't always tell her so. Carl's pain wasn't just in his mind, it wore out his whole self. Alzheimer's can make it hard to eat, and Dolly told close friends he got skinny, his 6'2" body shrinking as time went by. He would sit quietly, not the lively man who used to crack dry jokes that made her smile. By 2024, when he was 81, he couldn't walk much anymore, needing someone to help him get from his chair to the bed in their Nashville house. Dolly said his eyes would still brighten when she walked in, a little glimmer of the Carl she fell for 60 years ago, but those times got fewer and farther between. The sickness took his words, his walking, and at last on the 3rd of March 2025, it took his life, leaving him calm after years of fighting. Dolly found some comfort in that calm, even with her sadness. She told People on the 17th of March, 2025, "I'm at peace that he's at peace, knowing he wasn't in pain anymore." Carl's final days were gentle, spent in the home they had lived in for decades, not some cold hospital room. She would sit by him, singing soft tunes like "I Will Always Love You," the song she wrote way back, hoping her love reached him, even if his mind couldn't grab it. Alzheimer's had taken so much, but it couldn't break the tie they'd built over 60 years together. When he slipped away, she was right there saying goodbye to the man who had been her strength, even as he hurt, without making a sound. The world didn't see much of Carl. He stayed away from cameras and crowds, working his business while Dolly lit up stages, but his illness showed they were just regular people behind it all. Dolly wrote to her fans on the 6th of March, 2025, saying Carl was in God's arms now, and she was all right about that. His suffering had stretched on 8 years or more of losing bits of who he was, from 74 to 82. She had seen him push through, then weaken, and finally rest. For her it was a sorrowful close to an extraordinary tale, where love stood firm, even as Alzheimer's tried to tear it down. But do you know that despite not being a man who appeared on stage, Carl Dean at some point had a lot of conspiracies around his life? Let's find out what he did in secret that got people talking. The mystery man controversy. Dolly Parton has been a global superstar for decades, yet one part of her life mainly remained hidden from everyone: her husband Carl Dean. While Dolly stood in the bright lights of fame, Carl avoided all that attention, making him one of the most mysterious people tied to a celebrity relationship. Their marriage, which started in the mid-1960s, lasted much longer than most marriages in Hollywood. However, many still knew almost nothing about the man she called her greatest love. Dolly always honored Carl's wish to stay private. She often laughed that he only saw her perform once, and even then, he said he'd rather hear her music at home. He had no interest in the entertainment world, and Dolly never pushed him to join her in the public eye. Instead, they made a marriage that fit them, even if it looked strange to others. When Dolly was on tour, Carl stayed at their Tennessee home, looking after their businesses and living a calm life. Though Carl stayed out of view, Dolly talked about him plenty, calling him her biggest cheerleader. She told stories about how he loved reading, being outside, and driving his pickup truck. Carl liked simple things, unlike Dolly, who lived for sparkle and shine. They balanced each other in a way that kept their marriage strong through all the highs and lows of her fame. Even when Dolly's career took off even more in the 1970s and 1980s, Carl kept away from the attention. Carl didn't go to the big opening nights when she acted in movies like 9 to 5 and Steel Magnolias. He cheered for her at home, when she won Grammy Awards instead of stepping onto the red carpet. He was proud of what she did, but he never wanted any of the spotlight for himself. In 2016, Dolly and Carl marked their 50th wedding anniversary. Many people doubted their marriage could last that long, with Dolly's busy career and Carl's quiet ways, but they showed everyone they were wrong. Instead of throwing a big fancy party, they renewed their vows privately with close family and friends. Dolly wore a lovely wedding dress, and Carl stepped into view for that day. It was a rare peek into a relationship that had stayed mostly out of sight for 50 years. Even at 2025, Carl Dean stayed as mysterious as ever. He hardly ever appeared in public, and Dolly kept respecting his choice to stay private. Their marriage showed that love didn't have to fit the usual mold to last. While Dolly glowed on stage, Carl was her steady rock behind the scenes, proving that sometimes the best love stories didn't need to be seen to be true. But lately, the Parton family has been in pain because he passed away. In an Instagram post, Dolly Parton asked for privacy. Despite this plea for privacy, some family members of the Parton family are breaking the silence about a man who was never considered by the media as a friend. Carl Dean's sister breaks silence. After he was gone, his sister Sandra Dean spoke up about the man who stayed away from the public eye for nearly 60 years of marriage to Dolly. Sandra, who is 79 years old, shared what she remembered with a Tennessee newspaper on the 10th of March, 2025, letting people see a bit of Carl's quiet life. She said he was a good brother to her, always worked hard, and cared a lot about his family. Even though he didn't like the attention of being connected to someone as famous as Dolly, Sandra's words showed a man who kept things simple and stayed himself, no matter how much Dolly's stardom grew. Sandra talked about their childhood with Carl and their brother Donnie, growing up in Nashville, where they were born to their parents, Virginia Bates Dean and Edgar Henry Dean. She said Carl was the oldest of the three, born on the 20th of July 1942, and he always watched out for her and Donnie when they were little. He was the one who kept us in line, she said, chuckling about how he would tell them what to do in their small house in East Ridge. After Carl and Dolly married on the 30th of May 1966, Sandra saw him settle into a way of living that didn't shift much, even as Dolly's career grew. She said he would come home from paving roads, clean up, and spend his evenings in their Nashville house, far from cameras and noisy crowds. He didn't care for all that fuss, Sandra explained, saying Carl told her once he went to one big music event with Dolly in 1966 and decided right then it wasn't his thing. She recalled him saying, "I will leave the singing to her, I've got my things to do." Sandra said he meant it, sticking to his business and fixing up their place, a big ranch outside town where he could mess with machines and enjoy some peace. Sandra told how Carl loved music, even if he didn't want any part of show business life. She said he would turn up records loud, including bands like Lynyrd Skynyrd and Led Zeppelin. Dolly later told her those songs made it into her 2023 album called Rockstar. He would grin when she sang something he liked, Sandra said. She also said he was proud of Dolly, always telling Sandra how clever and gifted she was, but he didn't need the world to know it. Sandra figured that's why he stayed so private. 60 years with Dolly, and hardly anyone saw him unless she shared an old photo from way back. When Sandra talked after Carl died, she said he had been slowing down the last few years, especially after he turned 80 in 2022. She didn't say much about his health. He was worn out and liked being home more. He would sit out back with the dogs, just watching the trees, she said, her voice getting quiet. Sandra said she last saw him on the 25th of December 2024, when he seemed happy but weak. She didn't think he'd leave so soon after that, and when he passed on the 3rd of March 2025, it shook her up. "He was my big brother. I thought he would always be there," she said, her eyes wet with tears. Sandra wanted people to understand that Carl wasn't just Dolly Parton's husband, but his own man. She said he loved fishing, fixing things, and joking around with her. "He'd tease us about being old, then laugh at himself," she said, smiling at the thought. She told him that he always sent her birthday cards. He never forgot, even as he got bigger, that hers is on April 5th. Sandra said it was sad to lose him, but she was glad he had Dolly in their 60 years together. She agreed that he lived a quiet, steady life, and hoped that people would remember him for that, not just because he was married to a famous person. Dolly Parton is sad about Carl Dean. Dolly Parton, the famous country singer, who is known all over the world, opened up about a special honor to her late husband Carl Dean. Even though she's 79 years old and has been through a lot, she just couldn't hold back her happiness when something great happened last week. She went to her Instagram story on March 21, 2025, a Friday, a website where she interacts with her fans, and wrote about how important the show was to her. It wasn't just any show, it was part of the Opry 100 special in Nashville, Tennessee, which was a big event to honor the Grand Ole Opry's 100th birthday. She wanted everyone to know how much the singing made her cry. She wrote the tune for the song "I Will Always Love You" a long time ago, and a lot of people love it. Dolly wasn't singing this time. A group of stars got together to remember her and Carl. Reba McEntire, a famous 69-year-old country music star, took the lead with Carrie Underwood, another singer with a strong voice, but they didn't sing by themselves. The sound was full and warm because about 50 singers from the Opry choir joined in. The show happened on March 19, 2025, a Wednesday. People all over the world could watch because it was shown live on TV. Dolly said it was for Carl, who has been her husband for almost 60 years. Dolly wasn't able to be at the Opry that night, but she could feel every note from home. She cried when she saw Reba, the band, Carrie and Lady A all sing her song. When the Grand Ole Opry turned 100 years old, she wrote on her Instagram story, "I have not stopped crying over the beautiful tribute of I Will Always Love You." She said that all of those beautiful and strong voices sang it to remember Carl, and it really moved her. She also said that the feeling was so strong that she couldn't even put it into words. Carl was her partner ever since they met outside of a laundromat in 1964. They got married on May 30, 1966, 2 years after they met. It hurt a lot to lose him after all that time, but this honor brought his love back to her in a big way. That night, before the song started, Reba talked to Dolly. "Everyone at the Opry, and around the world, wants to send you our thoughts and prayers," she said. It was a link to the song they were about to sing, so she added, "And you got to know we will always love you." That love that Dolly felt through her TV set stayed with her. She thanked all the singers who helped her cry enough to wash away a lot of the pain in a letter she sent on Friday. Reba led the group with her kind heart. She sang very high, and Lady A and the group filled the room with sound. It felt like a hug from a long way away. To Dolly at that moment, it's been 60 years since Dolly and Carl met and fell in love. They stayed out of the spotlight for the whole time. He wasn't interested in fame and stayed home while she sang for everyone, but she always said he was her rock. This remembrance, written 16 days after he died, showed how much he meant to her and other people as well. At the end of her Instagram note, she said, "I will always love you too." This was a promise to Carl and a thank you to the musicians. The Opry 100 special was more than just a party for Opry's 100th birthday. As time went on, it helped Dolly get back on her feet. She joined the Opry in 1969 and has been a part of it ever since. For her it's like family. "I Will Always Love You" is an old song that they picked. The movie came out in 1974, but Dolly has a soft spot in her heart for it. Even though she wrote it about quitting her job, it means a lot more now. Carl felt like the song had new life after hearing Reba, Carrie, Lady A, and 50 other Opry singers perform it. Dolly's words on Friday showed that she was still sad, but the music made her feel better. Even though she lost her husband of almost 60 years, she is still strong. This honor helped her remember that she's not alone. Her music friends gave her a simple but lovely gift that she will always treasure. Even though Dolly and her husband loved each other, there were times when her life was a mess. What did she take part in? Let's find out. Getting a tattoo. Dolly Parton, the singer of Jolene, turned 79 years old on January 19, 2025. After putting out her first song, Puppy Love, she became well known in country music. In 1950, among the many awards she has won over the years, are 11 Grammy Awards, out of 50 nominees. Aside from that, she got 10 awards from the Country Music Association. One of them was Show of the Year. Only 7 women have ever won the Country Music Association Entertainer of the Year award. Her name is Dolly. There were more things about Dolly Parton than just her songs and dress choices that stood out. A lot of people thought she always wore long sleeves because she had tattoos for a long time. In the last 20 years, there have been a lot of crazy ideas in pop culture. One that kept people interested was whether she had tattoos. Many people thought she might have them. Where were they if she did? Even though she was popular and had tattoos for a long time, Dolly never showed them off. Fans thought she might have a big tattoo on her arm because of the mysterious clothes she wore that had full bands that covered her arms and chest. Then in 2020, she made things clear in an interview with People magazine. A small brown and yellow beehive, with a tiny bee sitting on top of it. That little dent was the mouth of it, she said. "I did have some tattoos. That's true," she said, "but they were pretty. It wasn't something I did often." She told them more about what she had and why she got it. "My tattoos were artistic and pretty. Most of the time, they were done to hide a scar rather than make a statement. I had butterflies, ribbons and bows." Dolly Parton will definitely never forget the loss of Carl Dean for the rest of her life. Before they died, they spent important years together. On their quiet wedding day, they promised to be together forever. Why do you think they were married for so long? Leave a review and tell us what you think. Thanks for seeing. We'll see you next time.